It was raining the night she disappeared. Not a downpour, just that steady, whispering kind of rain that blankets a small town in silence. The kind that soaks into the pavement, into the rooftops, into the bones. The kind that hides things. Her name was Elena Drake. 32 years old. Schoolteacher. Engaged. Lived in the small, fog-wrapped town of Belwick Falls, in northern Oregon. A place where everyone knew everyone. Or at least they thought they did. It was October 17, 2018, a Wednesday. Elena left her school around 5:14 p.m. according to security cameras. She waved goodbye to the janitor, got into her silver Honda Civic, and drove off into the wet dusk. She was never seen again. No calls. No texts. No crashes. No sightings. Just gone. Her fiancé, Mark Renner, reported her missing by 9:37 p.m. He said she was supposed to meet him for dinner at their favorite Italian place. When she didn't show up and didn't answer her phone, he panicked. And in Belwick Falls, people don't go missing. Not without someone noticing. The police were quick to act, maybe too quick. They questioned Mark, of course. Looked through her home. Her car wasn't there. Her purse was gone. But her keys, oddly enough, were still in the ignition. The driver's seat was damp. But the floor beneath was dry. Something didn't add up. By the next morning, the town was buzzing. Missing posters. Social media posts. A candlelight vigil by Friday. But no trace of Elena. Until day 3. That's when they found her phone. It had been tossed into the storm drain near Hollow Pine Road, an old forest-lined stretch outside of town, where kids used to dare each other to go at night. The phone was cracked but functional. The last photo on the phone, a blurry picture. Taken at 6:08 p.m. the night she vanished. It showed a pair of headlights. And what looked like someone standing behind a tree. The police couldn't enhance it enough to identify the car or person. But the timestamp lined up with when she should be even halfway home. And Hollow Pine Road was not on her usual route. Then came the audio. Elena had dialed 911 at 6:07 p.m. But the call never connected. Still, it recorded 17 seconds of audio before dropping out. It was faint. But you could hear her breathing. Rapid. Nervous. And then, a voice. Male. Calm. You weren't supposed to see this. Then silence. That recording changed everything. People started pointing fingers. Mark was still under scrutiny, but Elena's co-workers mentioned a man who had been following her after work. A parent. Divorced. Strange. His name was Gavin Lee. Gavin had a daughter in Elena's 4th grade class. He had emailed her over a dozen times about class material, school trips, but always added personal comments. Compliments. One teacher said he had even shown up to Elena's yoga class. Twice. Just stood in the back and watched. When questioned, Gavin said he was just concerned about his daughter's grades, but when they asked him where he was on the night of the 17th, he hesitated. He said he was home. Alone. No alibi. But the kicker, his car, a dark blue pickup, matched the shape of the headlights in Elena's photo. Police got a warrant. Searched his truck. They found strands of long brown hair on the passenger seat. Elena's hair was brown. They found a broken bracelet in the glove box. Her fiancé confirmed it was hers. But no blood. No body. No fingerprints. Nothing concrete. Gavin was taken into custody but released 48 hours later. Insufficient evidence. The town boiled with anger. Protests. News vans. People walking the woods every weekend in search parties. Still nothing. Then, 3 months later, during the February thaw, a hunter stumbled across something in the woods near Hollow Pine Road. It wasn't a body. It was a shrine. Stones arranged in a circle. Elena's school photo in the center. Burned candles. And a note, "She saw too much. So now she sees nothing." It was written in red ink. DNA on the candles came back not Gavin S. Not Mark S. Not Elena S. In fact, it didn't match anyone in the national database. They were back to square one. But there was one last twist. In April 2019, a man named Travis Cole was arrested 80 miles south for assaulting a woman in a grocery store parking lot. When the police searched his storage unit, they found a disturbing collection: photos, locks of hair, personal items. One of the photos Elena Drake. It was taken at the grocery store, 4 days before she vanished. Cole had never lived in Belwick Falls. Had no connection to the school. No reason to know her. But the kicker, his handwriting matched the note found at the shrine. He denied everything. Lawyers argued that there was no proof he had ever encountered Elena, beyond the photo. No body. No murder weapon. No confession. In June 2021, Travis Cole was released. The case remains unsolved. Elena Drake's story still haunts Belwick Falls. The school replaced her desk but left her photo on the wall. Her students, now in high school, say they still hear her voice in their dreams. Sometimes. When it rains. Locals say you can still see a woman walking down Hollow Pine Road during storms. Soaked, shivering. Wearing a teacher's badge. They say if you stop, she'll ask for a ride. But if you let her in, you never make it home. Story 2. You never really know your neighbors. You nod to them in the hallway. Smile in the elevator. Maybe exchange small talk about the weather. But what if one of them was hiding a body? The story begins in Cincinnati, Ohio, in a worn-down apartment complex on the edge of town. Harbor Point. 15 stories tall. Built in the 70s. The elevators creak. The walls are thin. And the tenants they mostly keep to themselves. That's why no one noticed anything. Until the smell started. It was May 3, 2020, just after a heavy spring rain. Residents on the 4th floor began complaining about a foul odor. Like garbage. Or worse, the building manager, Mrs. Harlow, assumed it was food waste. She knocked on doors up and down the floor. When she got to apartment 405, no one answered. But the smell, it was strongest there. She used her master key. What she found behind the door still haunts her. The unit was dark. The curtains drawn. Flies buzzed near the kitchen. But the real horror was in the bathtub. Wrapped in 3 layers of plastic, taped with electrical cords and duct tape, was the body of a young woman. She had been dead for weeks. The police were called immediately. The building was evacuated. And the hunt for the tenant of 405 began. His name was Caleb Morton. 29. Quiet. Clean. Lived alone. No criminal record. Had moved in just 6 months earlier. But by the time police arrived, he was gone. What disturbed investigators wasn't just the body. It was everything else they found. On the walls were dozens of drawings, childlike sketches in red marker. Each one showed a stick figure surrounded by eyes. In the closet, they found women's shoes, 8 pairs. All different sizes. A camcorder was hidden inside the air vent. On the memory card, silent footage of people sleeping. Filmed through windows. In different homes. One of those people was the woman in the tub. Her name was Natalie Brooks. 26. She'd been missing for a month. Reported by her sister after failing to show up for a family dinner. Natalie lived across town. She and Caleb had no known connection. But security footage showed Caleb entering her apartment building multiple times over a 2-week period. Sometimes, he wore a maintenance uniform. Sometimes, a delivery jacket. The disturbing part, he was never seen leaving with her. The autopsy confirmed she died from asphyxiation. No signs of sexual assault. No defensive wounds. Just duct tape. Tied around her nose and mouth. But it got worse. Inside Caleb's freezer, detectives found 3 sealed Tupperware containers. Each held a human hand. None of them matched Natalie. The media went wild. The butcher of 405. The freezer collector. But while headlines exploded, Caleb Morton remained missing. No bank activity. No phone pings. No confirmed sightings. Until day 11. A motel clerk in Lexington, Kentucky, called police after seeing a man who matched Caleb's description. He checked in under the name David West, paid cash, and never left his room. When police burst in, the room was empty except for a folded note on the bed. "I'm still here. Just not where you're looking." It was signed, C. Back at Harbor Point, the investigation widened. Cops talked to neighbors. One elderly tenant, Mrs. Carrington, claimed she often saw Caleb standing in the hallway at night. Just standing. Sometimes for hours. Staring at apartment doors. Another tenant reported hearing crying. But not from Caleb's unit. From the vents. Recordings were taken, on one of them, from April 23 RD 8 days before the discovery. You can clearly hear a female voice whisper, "Please. I can't see anything. Why can't I see anything?" Then footsteps. And a voice, "SHHH, don't ruin the ending." A task force was formed. They cross-checked Caleb's DNA and found a partial match to 2 other cold cases from Michigan and Indiana. Both involved missing women. Both were found in plastic wrap. Both had similar sketches found near the bodies. But Caleb hadn't lived in either state. Or so they thought. Turns out he'd used 4 fake names since 2016. Each tied to short-term rentals. Each linked to disappearing women. His real name wasn't even Caleb. It was Daniel Blake. Born in 1991 in Pennsylvania. Taken from his abusive home at age 9. Bounced between foster homes. Juvenile record sealed. Changed his name at 18. His first confirmed alias appeared in 2014, under Caleb Morton. But the FBI now believes his crimes may have started years earlier. They suspect he used online classifieds to find victims. House cleaners. Nannies. Pet sitters. People who'd go somewhere unfamiliar. And sometimes, not come back. In July 2020, a private investigator working for one of the victims' families traced a clue from one of the camcorder tapes. A logo reflected in a window, a tattoo parlor in Chattanooga, Tennessee. When agents arrived, the owner said a man matching Caleb's description had been there 2 weeks earlier. Paid cash for a snake tattoo. His name in the appointment book, Mr. C. They checked surveillance. It was him. The tattoo covered the length of his arm. A serpent coiled around a woman's face. Her eyes were scratched out. Despite this lead, the trail went cold again. Until October 31, 2020. Halloween night. A woman named Tina Graves, living alone in rural West Virginia, called 911 to report a prowler. Said she saw a man outside, just standing in the rain. She described him exactly: thin, hooded, pale. By the time police arrived, he was gone. But footprints in the mud matched Caleb's shoe size. And taped to Tina's door was a red marker drawing a stick figure, surrounded by eyes. That was the last confirmed sighting. To this day, apartment 405 remains sealed off. Residents report strange things: flickering lights, scratching in the walls. The new tenant moved out after 6 nights. He said he woke up each night at 3:05 a.m. hearing a whisper from the vent, "Don't ruin the ending." If you're still listening, lock your door, check your vents, and subscribe to Evil Advice before Mr. C finds a new place to stay. Because some people never really leave. They called him the Raincoat Killer. Not because he killed in the rain, though he often did, but because every time police found one of his victims, folded neatly beside the body, was a soaking wet raincoat that didn't belong to them. This story isn't famous. Not yet, because when the killer was finally caught, his diary revealed things that made even seasoned detectives quit the force. It began in Wilmington, North Carolina, in the fall of 2014. A quiet city. Tree-lined streets. Salt in the air. The kind of place where horror feels like something that only happens on the news. But on September 2nd, that changed. A jogger found the body of a young man, early 20s, face down by the river. His neck was broken. No signs of a struggle. No wallet. But next to him, a raincoat. It was a child's size. Soaked. Torn. Police found nothing unusual at the scene. No fingerprints. No tire marks. No security footage. The death was ruled suspicious, but without leads, it went cold. Until October 8, when it happened again. This time, the victim was a middle-aged woman. Found on a hiking trail just outside the city. Same condition. Neck snapped. No robbery. No sexual assault. Next to her a child's raincoat. Same size. Same brand. Different color. By the third victim, detectives knew they had a serial killer. But the raincoats made no sense. Every victim was different: gender, age, race, occupation. No connection. No pattern. Except for the coat. And the fact that every murder occurred on a rainy night. The press went wild. Raincoat Reaper. The Storm Stalker. But one name stuck: the Raincoat Killer. Over the next 9 months, 9 more victims were found. Each one with a snapped neck. Each one with a different colored raincoat beside them. None of the coats belonged to the victims. And none of the coats had tags or labels. Every one had the size tag cut out. It was like the killer was collecting them. Or leaving them as a signature. But why children's raincoats? The FBI was brought in. Profiler Dr. Adrian Kell described the killer as highly intelligent, ritualistic, and emotionally frozen. He believed the killer had suffered childhood trauma, possibly abandonment, and was reenacting something symbolic. Maybe the victims represented people from his past. But that theory blew up in smoke when they found the 12th victim. It was a child. 9 years old. Missing for 2 days. Found in the woods just outside a residential park, same condition. Neck broken. But this time, no raincoat was left. Instead, there was a note. Written in blue ink on a torn piece of map, "This one was mine." That note changed everything. The killer had broken his pattern. Or revealed it? Was he saying the coats had all been his from childhood, or had he collected them from past victims? Either way, it was personal now. But they had no suspect. Until a local librarian noticed something strange. A man who had been coming in every Thursday afternoon for months, always wearing a gray hoodie, headphones, and carrying a stack of blank notebooks. He never checked out books. He only read newspapers. About the murders. The librarian, Marie Dorsey, called the tip line. Described him. Gave them surveillance footage. They ran facial recognition and found a match. Dean Wexler. 35. Former foster child. Moved city to city. Worked odd jobs. Clean record. But when they searched his last known residence, a rented storage unit in the next county, what they found made headlines worldwide. 12 children's raincoats. Folded. Labeled with initials. And one handwritten diary. Nearly 300 pages. All in blue ink. Neatly organized. The first page read, "They never looked back. So I made sure they would never leave again." D.W. The entries were chilling. Each murder was documented. With meticulous detail. Dates. Thoughts. Preparations. Diagrams. But he didn't refer to the victims by name. He referred to them by emotion. Disappointment. Kept looking at her phone. I waited until she turned around. Shame was bigger than expected. I had to knock twice. Fear asked for help. But I wasn't the right one to give it. The 12th entry about the child was different. It was the longest. He called her memory. He described seeing her at a grocery store. How she looked like his sister. How the color of her coat made him forget the sound of his mother leaving. It was the first entry with regret. He wrote, "I thought taking memory would bring something back. Instead, she took something from me. I think this is the last one. I think I'm ready." They found Dean Wexler 2 days later in a motel room, unconscious from a failed overdose. On the bed beside him was one final note: "No more storms. No more coats. No more waiting." Wexler survived. He was tried in 2022, convicted on all 12 counts of murder, and sentenced to life without parole. But here's what chills people even today: when asked in court why the raincoats, he didn't hesitate. He said, "Because they're the last thing she wore. And I was the one who left her. I've been chasing her ghost through every drop of rain since." If you hear footsteps on the sidewalk during a rainy night, don't assume it's just water dripping. Subscribe to Evil Advice. Because some killers don't chase attention. They chase ghosts. And some stories are written in blue ink. Story 3. When she escaped, she couldn't speak. Not because she didn't know how, but because no one had spoken to her in 7 years. This is the story of Rachel Malone, a girl who disappeared at 16, and was found at 23, alive, but changed forever. The man who took her, he wasn't a stranger. He was someone she trusted. Someone everyone trusted. It began in 2013. Rachel lived in Asheville, North Carolina. Small mountain town. Quiet. Safe. She was a straight-A student, part-time babysitter, and the kind of girl neighbors described as always polite. She vanished on a Friday evening, just after tutoring a younger student 2 blocks from home. The security camera at a corner store caught her walking alone, umbrella in hand, headphones in. Then, nothing. She was never seen again. The search was immediate. The town rallied. Hundreds of volunteers. Dogs. Flyers. TV coverage. But no leads. No witnesses, no struggle. No sign of Rachel. Her parents were destroyed. Her younger brother stopped speaking. The community held candlelight vigils every month. And over time, people forgot. Except one person. He remembered everything. Because he had Rachel the whole time. His name was Douglas Maynard. 58. Sunday school teacher. Volunteer handyman. Widower. Everyone trusted Doug. He fixed fences. Brought baked pies to funerals. Told dad jokes. He even helped hang Rachel's missing poster on the church bulletin board. And all that time, she was in his basement. What happened, why her, and how did he do it? The answer lies in what police would later call the most meticulously planned abduction in North Carolina history. Doug Maynard had been watching Rachel for months. Maybe years. He volunteered at the local youth center where she tutored. Sat at the back. Pretended to read. He built trust slowly. Asked about her school. Gave her rides on rainy days. Complimented her grades. Played the harmless old man. But behind the smile, Doug was building something. Under his house, behind a fake water heater, down a hidden set of stairs, he constructed a soundproof room. No windows. Insulated walls. Bolted door. And one small bed. On April 12, 2013, Doug offered her a ride home. It was raining. She hesitated. But she knew him. Trusted him. He drove her toward her house, then past the turn. She asked why. He smiled. And then everything went black. When she woke up, she was chained to the floor. The room smelled of bleach. There was a mattress, a toilet, a bucket, and a small TV that only played pre-recorded tapes of Doug speaking. He told her this wasn't kidnapping. That the world outside had ended. That he was the only one left. She screamed. Fought. Tried to escape. But days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And Rachel began to disappear, mentally. Not because she gave up, but because he broke her reality. He timed every meal. Controlled every light. Played audio of thunder and war outside the walls. She thought the world had ended. And in some way, it had. Years passed. Doug would dress her in second-hand clothes. Feed her twice a day. Read Bible verses. Sometimes he was kind. Sometimes cold. He kept a journal, later found by police, with chilling entries. Day 643, she asked about her parents. Gave her extra soup. She suggesting. Day 1087, rain today. Played storm tape. She cried for 2 hours. Felt something like guilt. And the most disturbing entry, day 2309, she stopped asking questions. Her silence feels like a victory. But Doug didn't anticipate one thing: Rachel never stopped counting. She kept a mental calendar. Traced lines on the edge of the bed frame with a broken fingernail. She memorized the sound of his footsteps, the rhythm of the keys, the way the lock turned. And on March 2, 2020, after Doug suffered a mild stroke in his kitchen, Rachel heard silence for 18 hours. That was her chance. She used a piece of metal to pry a loose tile near the toilet, reached the bolt on her chain, and freed herself. She climbed the stairs. The door was unlocked. Doug was unconscious. She stepped into the living room and saw a calendar on the wall. It was 2020. She had been gone 2,517 days. She opened the front door. Rain poured down. She ran barefoot, screaming. Banged on the first house she saw. The neighbors recognized her face immediately. They had seen it on posters. Years ago. Doug survived. Was arrested that night. Charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, psychological abuse, and more. In court, he smiled. Said he saved her from the world. Rachel sat silently during the trial. When asked if she wanted to speak, she only said, "I'm here." That's enough. Doug was sentenced to 4 life terms. Rachel lives under a new name now. In another state. Away from cameras. But in rare interviews, she says the only thing that helped her survive was counting. Counting days. Counting cracks. Counting seconds between footsteps. She says the rain helped too. Because when it rained, she felt less alone. The sound drowned out his voice. And reminded her the world was still out there. If you're still listening, don't ignore strange neighbors. Don't assume safety in smiles. Subscribe to Evil Advice. Because Rachel escaped.